So good, so good, so good.
Great gifts for mom? We've got them. And they're up to 60% off at Nordstrom Rack stores now.
You know they have Marc Jacobs?
Gotta show mom some love.
That is so good.
Snag amazing deals on Mother's Day gifts from Barefoot Dreams, Kate Spade New York, and more. Great brands, great prices. That's why you rack.
Acura's all-new ADX, a compact SUV that isn't just built for one thing, it's precision-crafted for everything. To escape the grind with available all-wheel drive. To go with your flow with available Google built-in.
Hey Google, turn it up.
Okay, turning up the volume. And crafted to be heard with an available Bang & Olufsen premium sound system. The all-new Acura ADX, crafted to match your energy. Acura, precision-crafted performance.
Take your vibes and go, 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 go.
Google is a trademark of Google LLC.
If you are interested in supporting this podcast and at the same time getting all my episodes ad-free, then please head to my website, 3dprintingbasicspod.com. Again, that's 3dprintingbasicspod.com. There you can find all the links to support me, my affiliate links, and as a perk, you can get all my episodes ad-free if you subscribe on Patreon, Spotify, or Apple Music. Again, all my links will be there, as well as a contact form if you have any questions. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy this episode. Hello and welcome to 3D Printing Basics. This is episode number 59, and in this episode I'm going to be going over tools regarding 3D printing. I'm going to go over some tools that I think it is imperative that you keep always on hand, and then I'm going to go over some tools that I also think is nice to have. But by the end of this episode, I think that you will have a nice list of tools and have an idea for what you need if you are just getting into 3D printing. Before we get into it, I would also like to mention the form that I'm leaving in the show notes today. If you have any questions, anything you want to ask me, please go down to that form and you can fill it out and ask me any questions you have. And with that being said, let's get right into it. This is only going to be for FDM 3D printing because I think that's obviously the most common type of 3D printing and kind of the main topic that I've been covering in my podcast. And the number one most important thing that I think you're going to need for FDM 3D printing is you're going to need some alcohol. 99% alcohol, not the stuff you drink, the IPA, the isopropyl alcohol. And this is just for keeping everything clean, whether it be your printer in general, but especially the bed. Bed adhesion and first layer adhesion is so important. I've already made episodes talking about how important it is. It's so important that you keep that area clean and free from anything like your finger oils, dust, anything like that. You need to keep it clean so that the first layer adhesion works great every single time. And so in my opinion, IPA is one of, if not the most important tool that you can have in your 3D printing area. And so that's kind of the first necessity, and then just I'm going to keep running down the list. I have necessities, and then I have tools that I think are nice to have. But to keep going down the line of necessities, I think a microfiber cloth is definitely on the list of necessities. I think it kind of goes hand in hand with the IPA, just being able to clean everything off, get everything free of dust or debris or finger oils, any other kind of oils, just anything like that, keeping everything nice and clean so that it has the best chance of success and stays working as it should. Also, flush cutters, wire cutters, there are some other names that people have for these. I call them flush cutters. They're the little cutters that come with just about every 3D printer nowadays, and the ones that come with printers usually work okay. I would recommend going online and finding some better ones that last a little longer and stay sharp for a little bit longer, but those are really, really helpful when it comes to cutting supports off, trimming things up, and exactly what I use them for, cutting things to be flush to the surface, especially if you have like some blobs or some imperfections here and there that you just need to cut off. Flush cutters are a really, really nice tool to have, and in my opinion, I think that they're a necessity, and I feel like that point is proven because they come with almost every 3D printer. But like I said, I would recommend that you go and purchase some better flush cutters. They're still very cheap. You can get them on Amazon for like $10. And they're going to last a lot longer and stay sharp for a lot longer than the ones that come with your printers. And kind of going hand in hand with the flush cutters, they get used for just about the same stuff. We're looking at pliers. Small needle nose pliers are in my opinion, imperative for 3D printing, especially if you're using a lot of prints that use supports. Pliers are incredibly helpful for getting supports off prints. I just spent probably an hour with a giant print of mine with very intricate supports that I would not have been able to fully clear out if I didn't have pliers, especially needle nose pliers, to reach into some of these nooks and crannies that my fingers just can't get into, and being able to pull that stuff out and get rid of everything to leave with a nice clean print that is very, very well detailed. So make sure you get yourself some pliers. And to kind of round out those big three, in my opinion, of kind of grabbers and cutters and stuff like that, we're looking at flush cutters, pliers, and then also a knife, whether you want it to be an X-Acto knife or one of those razor blade knives that holds a razor blade. Those are the two knives that I would recommend. Just something that's incredibly sharp and also very thin in case you need to do some cutting. For me personally, I use the razor blade a lot for getting stuff off of the print bed, especially I would say the number one scenario for me is a print fails early on, and so it's only like 1 to 5 layers thick and it's still on the bed. You can't really get your fingers under that. There's nothing really to grab onto. So I use the razor blade. I just kind of shimmy it under a corner and peel it up off the bed, and it works really well. And as long as you're careful, it's not going to damage the print bed at all. But a knife/razor blade, that's definitely very helpful for things like that. And then also, of course, for cutting anything. I use it a lot for shaving little dots or blobs that are on the sides of my prints too. And overall, it's just very helpful to have, and something that I think is a necessity for the 3D printer. This episode is brought to you by PCBWay. Ready to take your electronics projects to the next level? PCBWay offers everything you need, from custom PCBs to 3D printing and even CNC machining, all under one roof. They're trusted by engineers and makers worldwide for their exceptional quality and fast turnaround. And here's a special deal for listeners of 3D Printing Basics. Use the promo code 3DPrinting2, SQUARED, to get $10 off your first order. Start your next project with PCBWay and see the difference for yourself. Head over to PCBWay.com today. The next two tools that I want to go over I think are imperative for maintenance of the printer. And number one is going to be a set of Allen wrenches. And I think this is really, really important to have just for general upkeep. And this is also another thing that I would say, go on Amazon and get a better set. The ones that they come with most 3D printers, but they're pretty bad. I strip them out pretty quickly and then they become unusable. So I would definitely suggest getting a set off Amazon. They're also super cheap, or whatever your equivalent of Amazon is. But a set of Allen wrenches is super, super important, because there's going to be a lot of times where there's going to be a small fix that you need to do, where you need to undo a couple Allen screws, pull something apart. It's just really important to have, especially with these 3D printers that are put together almost entirely of Allen screws. It's going to be very important to have Allen wrenches to be able to undo that stuff. So make sure you keep a set of Allen wrenches on hand for any kind of maintenance or any kind of fixing that you need to do to your 3D printers. And another important thing to have, especially as we get more into the kind of linear rails the linear rods kind of construction of 3D printers, is some oil. I have what's called sewing machine oil, but it's always on hand. It's imperative for maintenance, because the oil that comes with the printer when it comes lubricated on the bed, on the linear rods, that doesn't last forever. There's going to be a time where you're going to need to re-oil it, or else you're going to be in danger of scratching those rods or damaging them, because it's just completely dry and there's no lubrication. So that's something that's really important. Oil, and also grease for the Z screws too. Bambu Labs, I know they come with their own grease, and that's what I use, but definitely make sure you keep lubrication on hand for maintenance of your 3D printers, because the lubrication that comes on the printers, they don't last forever, and it's important to keep reapplying that so that your 3D printers keep operating at a high level and will be able to run for a long, long time. And then the last thing on my list of necessities, I think it's a little bit controversial. I would definitely understand if you in your everyday 3D printing life don't think it's a necessity. But for me, a deburring tool, and for those of you that don't know, that's just a little blade that comes on like a long, not a long, but probably like it almost looks like a screwdriver, but instead of having a screw driving tip on the end, it just has a little blade that you can run along the edge, And for me, I use this tool every day. It's one of the most important tools in my 3D printing space because I print a lot with brims. And if you have been printing with brims before, you know they don't always pop off exactly like you want. Sometimes they break off and they leave a little sharp edge on the bottom of your prints, and the deburring tool is really, really easy. You just run it along the edge. You just need to do it one time, especially if you have a sharp blade, and that takes care of everything. It leaves a nice little chamfer on the bottom of your parts, makes them easy to work, easy to touch, and to me it's a tool I use every day, and I can't say it enough. It's a very important tool for me to have, and I think it's an important tool for everybody to have, especially if you're printing with brims or anything like that. Even if you're not printing with brims, it can just be a nice touch. If you have some really sharp corners, just run the deburring tool along there and it'll clean them up really nice. It just glides through there and it leaves a nice chamfer on the edges of your parts. So that's something, if you haven't looked into it, I would definitely recommend looking into it. A deburring tool is going to be really, really nice to have. And speaking of nice to have, that's actually the next list of tools that I have, and it's exactly what it sounds like. I think these tools are nice to have. I don't think they're necessities, but I do think that they will make your day-to-day 3D printing life easier. And I'm going to start off with probably another controversial pick. I think the spatula that comes with everything, that comes with almost every 3D printer, I don't think it's a necessity. I can probably count off my hand. I've been 3D printing for about 5 years now, and I've probably used the spatula less than 10 times. In my opinion, the idea of it to get prints off the bed, in my opinion, is just way too aggressive. It could damage the print bed. It can damage your part, and I think that there's way easier ways to be able to get it off the bed. I think the spatula was important when we were in the times of glass beds and not having these Flexiplates, just being able to kind of pick it up and bend it, and then the part pops off. But I think nowadays they've been kind of aged out, and I don't think they're super necessary. But if you think they're necessary, feel free to leave a comment and tell me what you use it for. So, this is just my opinion. This is what I think. If you think something different, that's totally okay. And then the next tool that I think is nice to have is definitely a filament dryer. I think most of us don't have the ability to kind of store hundreds of rolls of filament in this nice temperature controlled space, keeping them all dry. And so I think a filament dryer is pretty important, but not a necessity for some people to have. Just, it would be really nice if you have a roll of PLA that you've kept in your house for a while and it's just gotten a little too wet, it's not printing so good. You can toss it in the filament dryer and that takes care of everything right away. And I don't think it's necessary because there are other options. You can stick it in your oven. There's other options besides the filament dryer to be able to take care of that. Even your own printer nowadays, the Bambu Labs, they have a filament drying setting where you set the roll on the bed and you cover it with a box and it works just like a filament dryer. So that's just something to kind of consider, but a filament dryer is definitely good for ease of use and it could be nice to have. And most filament dryers nowadays come with slots so that you could actually use it while it's printing. So that would definitely be helpful if you're printing something like nylon or PEEK or something that is really susceptible, is really hygroscopic and really susceptible to absorbing moisture from the outside air. And then the next tool that we're going to talk about is going to be metal brushes. And these metal brushes can be very helpful, especially if you have kind of an issue where maybe you have something like the blob of death. I don't know how many of you follow me on Instagram, but I just had a blob of death issue. But basically, if you have some extra filament coming out that kind of globs onto the nozzle, the metal brush can be really helpful for cleaning that off because as it runs across the nozzle, it just kind of grabs all the excess plastic and cleans it off and leaves it with a pretty nice surface. So metal brushes, not a necessity, but I think they're really nice to have, especially if you have problems like that. And it can also be helpful for post-processing if you have if you have a sturdy print that has some blobs on there. You could definitely use the metal brushes. If you don't care about scratches, you can definitely use the metal brushes to get it off of there. And the last tool I want to talk about that I think is nice to have, honestly, I was kind of going back and forth between whether this was a necessity or if it was nice to have, but I ultimately decided that it was going to go in the nice to have list, and that is calipers. I was thinking they might be necessary just because I feel like every print that comes off, needs to be measured. I feel like I measure every print and I use calipers a lot, especially when designing parts for 3D printing. But I also think that at the end of the day, this is a show made mostly for beginners, and most beginners are not going to need calipers to measure the accuracy of their prints, so I decided to put it in the nice to have list. But overall, calipers, they're nice to have. It's going to be super nice to be able to measure your prints, kind of see exactly down to the thousandth of an inch how accurate your printer is, and if it's not accurate, then you can make changes, or you can call customer service to try and get it to be more accurate, because I feel like that's kind of one of the most important things of 3D printing, is just being able to trust that the size that you design something at is going to be the size that you're getting it at when you're actually 3D printing something. And with that being said, I think that's all I have for you guys today. I hope that you guys enjoyed this episode and now have a nice little list of kind of what to get if you're just getting into 3D printing. If you have any questions, like I said, please fill out the form. It will be in the show notes below. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I'll talk to you next time.